doing?
How's yourself?
Good seeing you here.
All right, likewise.
Anywhere around the crowd, guys.
How you doing? Good.
Okay. That should be good. Can you folks standing in the back hear me? Okay, I see a thumbs up. Should be good.
There's some chairs up here, y'all want to sit down?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I'm Otto here, Holzer with Post 38 American Legion here behind me. And it'll be my privilege to be Master of Ceremonies for this program this morning. Thank you all for being here to help us dedicate this memorial to all the veterans of World War II. Do we have, well, I'll put it this way. If there are veterans here today, and I know there are some, who served in World War II, would you please stand up? And if you're already standing, raise your hand, remain standing.
All right.
God bless you for your service. You're part of the reason that we can all be out here today. I'd like to make some introductions this morning of some special guests. Before I start, if any of you have cell phones, would you please mute them for the duration of this program. And as I introduce these folks, I'd like you to stand for just a moment so we can see where you are. Floresville Mayor Dana Garza. City Councilman Jim Miller. City Councilman John Guerrero. City Manager Andy Jocelyn. Fire Chief Lorenzo Ortiz. Sheriff Joe Tackett, Wilson County Sheriff Tackett, is he here yet? I'd like to welcome officers that are here this morning from the Bear County Sheriff's Office, uniformed officers, and I think they're in the back somewhere. I saw them there. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Floresville School District Superintendent Jerry Huntfeld. The administrator of the Frank Tejada State Veterans Home in Floresville, Mr. Peter Cook. Senior aerospace instructor, Floresville High School Air Force JROTC, Colonel Ken Williams. American Legion 14th District Commander, Mr. Reno Riley. Our local Post 38 Auxiliary President is Lawana Newman. And a pretty good sized group of Patriot Riders that were hard to miss as they arrived this morning. We attend a lot of our special functions here, and we appreciate them all coming out today. Also want to thank members of Scout Troop 114 and 393 for passing out programs this morning and for being here in uniform. And on a personal note, I'd like to mention that a couple of my high school classmates that are here sitting in back, Betty Barnes and Jim McNair. You too, Jim. Thank you. I mentioned them particularly because we're dedicating this memorial today, and a lot of it is about the Battle of Iwo Jima. And Betty informed me that her brother John Barnes had served on Iwo Jima during World War II. Last, well, is there anyone that I missed that would like to introduce yourself? Okay. If I missed anyone that had responded to indicate they were trained today, I apologize. Last but not least, Mr. Gibbs. Are you back here somewhere? Okay. I want to introduce Mr. Gibbs. You know, he's generally living around the background of these functions, taking notes. But he's the gentleman that keeps, one of them that keeps us informed of what's going on in the city of Floresville. Mr. Gibbs from the Wilson County. You recognize the memorial here to the front as a silhouette of a flag raising on the island of Iwo Jima during the war in the Pacific. Iwo Jima was an important objective because it had a prepared airstrip that our bombers badly needed for their B-29 bombing runs into Japan, some 760 miles away. The 5th Marine Division assaulted the island on 19 February 1945. In the month that it took to clear it, Japanese, Iwo Jima became the costliest battle in Marine Corps history. The approximate 3-mile by 5-mile island of rock and lava sand cost the Marines 6,821 casualties. Thanks to war photographer Joe Rosenthal, it also produced one of the most historic combat photos of World War II. 5 Marines and a Navy corpsman raised the flag atop 550-foot Mount Suribachi. The mountains located on the southern tip of the island was taken within 4 days after Marines landed. But it took the remainder of the month to take the rest of the island from the Belgian Japanese. Following the taking of the famous photos, the 6 flag raisers returned to fighting, where 3 were later killed in action. We're fortunate today to have as our guest speaker the son of one of the flag raisers. He is also a Marine buddy and a personal friend of our post commander, who will have the privilege of introducing him in a few minutes. Would ask you to please stand now for the posting of the colors from Wilson High School Air Force Junior OTC.
Hey, hey, Harry, hold, hold, hey, hold, guard, hold, hold. Hey, hey, hold.
Please remain standing for the playing of the bugle call to the colors, which direct your attention to the flag, followed immediately by the national anthem.
Hold! Hold! Hey! Hold, guard! Hold!
Please remain standing for the invocation by our Mississippi chaplain,
hey.
Jim Dewey.
Hold! Hey! Hold, guard! Hold! All out. Aim.
Our Heavenly Father, we come together this day to thank Thee for the many blessings Thou hast bestowed upon us. Thank Thee for our families and our friends. We thank Thee for bringing us into this great nation, for helping us know and remember those that live so much more that maintain our way of life. We ask Thee for Thy blessings to be poured out upon all of our young men. And even in this day, for abroad on the earth, so that we have to come out of it. And pray that this nation may continue to prosper and grow in knowledge and science. We praise Thee for Thy kindness and mercy. And pray that thou would continue to strengthen thy people. That in the last day, we may once again rejoice. All of our children and our spirit, all of us. We pray that we all will to this burial and passing of
Thank you, sir. Please be seated. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce our host tonight, Sergeant Major Greg Hendricks, United States Marine Corps retired, who will introduce our guest speaker and guest of honor today. Commander.
Mayor, fellow veterans, and dignitaries, according to a special event that almost didn't happen. He kept telling Steve that it never rained in Texas. And it would continuously go for months and months without any rain. We had the painters coming on Friday, it rained. We had them coming on Saturday, it rained. Sunday afternoon, we were starting to worry and planning. We actually bought black cans of spray paint to come out here and spray paint ourselves. But the painter came out, well, weather held up, and we were able to get it painted. So that's a good thing. We don't have a spotted silhouette. Steve Bradley and I go back, way back. We went to kindergarten together, all the way through high school. We joined the Marine Corps for class of 1967. There was about 10 of us that joined the Marine Corps from the class. All of them went over to Vietnam. Steve and I ended up in the same platoon in Vietnam, an infantry platoon. I got in a different squad than he did. In June of 1968, my squad was on patrol and we got ambushed. And we were pinned down for quite a while. Finally, we were able to get ourselves out of there and back to the platoon CP. I went looking for Bradley. He was at that time a radio man for the platoon commander. He said, "Oh, Bradley got hit." I said, "What do you mean he got hit? We're the ones that were ambushed. You were back here all by yourselves." "Oh, he got hit by a sniper. And he ran to the helicopter, he got on it, and he flew away." I said, "I'll tell you." So he spent a little over 3 months in Vietnam, and I spent the rest of the 13 months over there. I never forgave him for that. Next thing I know, he's writing me a letter saying, "Boy, it sure is nice back in Wisconsin, up at the lake." And he's enjoying himself. And I'm sitting there reading this, probably soaking wet, jungle rock, everything else that goes on over there, leeches all over you. And I'm thinking to myself, "You dirty dog." But I made it back, and he was the best man at my wedding. I also graduated with his wife. And, so Steve, like I said, and I go way back. And, just for an example, I knew his dad. He was the funeral home director in our small town up the sides of Floresville. And he was growing up, getting interested in the Marine Corps, and all of us were talking about joining. We all went, I went to ask him about it. He would not tell me a thing about it. He said, don't ask. And I thought, that's funny, so I asked Steve, why don't ask? Don't ask because I'm just like anybody else. They told me to do something, I did it. I wasn't a hero. So it took me about 5 months to get the picture that's inside signed by him to me because he didn't want it. And when he gave it to me, he said, don't ever ask me to do this again. I said, okay, I won't. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce a close friend, best man, fellow Marine that we spent some time in the bush, Steve Bradley.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate the kind words that everyone has said. I have a speech prepared, and I was thinking that between Otto and Greg, I don't know if there's anything more to say. Because my dad definitely believed that all I did was to help out a little bit. And as Ira Hayes felt that the real heroes on Iwo Jima were the ones that didn't come back, and in his culture, heroes were older people. And he dealt him up problems dealing with that. About the silhouette. There's four, looks like there's 4 members there, but there are actually 6 flag raisers. And you start from the bottom of the flagpole, Harlan Block, and then the next one is my dad. And behind him is Renee Gagnon. And the third one that you see pictured there is Franklin Sousley, and behind him is Mike String. And the end one, who's just letting go of the flag, is Ira Hayes. And with that, let me begin my formal speech. This morning, I read that about Memorial Day, on days like Memorial Day, we honor the spirit and sacrifice of veterans. But every day, Americans support and encourage veterans in their communities. This is the spirit of the nation. And today we're doing that. We're honoring veterans. We're honoring those who died in service. And we want to make sure, as many of the riders feel, that they'll never be forgotten. So we start with the picture. You know, growing up in my home, I never remember a picture of the flag raising. And in our funeral home, I worked with my dad for 16 years, and there was never a picture hanging in our funeral home. My father died almost 20 years ago, and if you were to ask him about his involvement in the Iwo Jima flag raising, he would have said, I saw some guys struggling with a pole, and I jumped in and lent them a hand. And that's what he did. But he did exactly what you did when you were in your during military service. When something needed to be done, you jumped in and lent them a hand. In this case, Joe Rosenthal just happened to take a picture. This was the second flag raising on Mount Suribachi. After the first flag raising, a commanding officer on a ship at sea ordered another larger flag to be raised so that everyone on the island of Iwo Jima could see that the Americans held Mount Suribachi, a strategic military place. My father's commanding officer, Colonel Dave Severance, ordered some troops to climb the Mount Suribachi to raise the second larger flag. Colonel Severance thought he was sending these boys on a death march. Joe Rosenthal, a photographer for the Associated Press, and Louis Lowry, a photographer for Leatherneck magazine, happened to tag along, and they recorded the event. Colonel Severance's boys succeeded to the top of Mount Suribachi, found a water pipe, and somehow attached the flag to it. My father saw some guys struggling with the pipe, and he jumped in.
to lend a hand. Associated Press photographer Joe Rosenthal was crouched down with his back to the commotion, digging into his photographer's bag, as Louis Lowry said, "Hey Joe, there it goes." Rosenthal grabbed his camera, turned around, and started taking pictures. He didn't know what he had because the film was developed on a ship later on, and Joe didn't know anything about it. History turned all its focus of 1/400th of a second on these 6 boys. Those 6 boys. Frozen in an element instant of battle, frozen them in a camera lens that hoisted the American flag on a makeshift pole. Their collective image, blurred yet indistinct, yet unforgettable, became the most recognized, the most reproduced in the history of photography. It gave them kind of an immortality, a faceless immortality. The flag raising on Iwo Jima became a symbol of the island, the mountain, and the battle in World War II. Here at Floresville, Texas, today we dedicate this silhouette in memory of those 6 boys and in memory of all the people who served during World War II. The 6 boys came from the east and the west, and the north and the south. They are Harlan Block from Rio Grande Valley, Texas. Harlan was born just 225 miles from Floresville in McAllen, Texas. He was a 21-year-old Marine in this figure with his back turned to the world. He grew up on a farm, getting up at 3 a.m. to milk cows. In his sophomore year of high school, his family moved to Weslaco. His father bought a truck and hauled crude oil to McAllen, and soon Harlan was hauling crude oil also. Harlan played football for the undefeated Weslaco Panthers football team in his senior year. In that year of 1942, Harlan also made All-South Texas. Renee Gagnon from Manchester, New Hampshire. At age 20, he's hidden in this photo by my father. They stand shoulder to shoulder. Only the tip of Renee's helmet and his 2 hands are visible. His parents were French Canadians, and they worked in Manchester's clothing mills, right where Rene worked until his Army draft notice came in May of 1943. Then he enlisted in the Marines and promised to marry his girl Pauline when he returned. Mike Strang from Franklinboro, Pennsylvania. At age 26, Mike was the old man of the flag raisers, and he's behind and to the left of Franklin Sousley. Sergeant Mike told his boys, "Follow me, and I will bring you safely home to your mothers." He was born on the Marine Corps birthday on November 10th, 1919, in Czechoslovakia, and he and his mother immigrated to the United States in 1922. They passed through Ellis Island and arriving in the mining and steel mill town of Franklinboro, Pennsylvania. Mike joined the Marines on October 6, 1939. He was the only one of the 6 flag raisers to enlist before the United States entered the war. Franklin Sousley from Hilltop, Kentucky. This redhead was born in 1925 in a small cabin with no electricity, and the house was out back. Franklin's father, Duke, died in 1934, and his mother, Goldie, became dependent upon Franklin as a young man to help with the chores of their small Kentucky farm. After high school graduation in June of 1943, Franklin got a job at the Frigidaire plant in Dayton, across the Ohio River to the north. He sent money home to Goldie from his paycheck as an 18-year-old propeller assembler. In January of 1944, he received his telegram from Uncle Sam, but instead of being drafted in the Army, he joined the Marines. Ira Hayes from Gila River Indian Reservation, Arizona. He was the Puma Indian that went to war, as Johnny Cash sang in his ballad of Ira Hayes. Ira Hayes was quiet. He was just like his father. His people were watchers and listeners, not talkers. Ira enlisted in the Marines 9 months after Pearl Harbor when he was 19. His community sent him off to war after a traditional Yuma ceremony. John Bradley, Appleton, Wisconsin. My father was born on July 10, 1923 in Antigo, Wisconsin. His father was a railroader. His family moved to Appleton, Wisconsin when he was 7. After graduating from Appleton High School, he enlisted in the Navy, a branch of service that his father told him, his father who was a World War I veteran, told him that would keep him out of the land battle. My father was 21 years old at the time of the flag raising. In 1966, I was talking to my dad about enlisting in the Marines during the Vietnam War. He said, you know, with the Marines, you'll be sleeping in the mud and not eating for days. As an 18-year-old senior in high school, I thought to my father that I'm sure the Marines had many improvements since your war in World War II. Well, one night in Vietnam, as I was staring out of my foxhole, my buddy asked me what I was thinking about as the rain was coming down and our supply helicopters couldn't bring us in any chow. And I told him I was thinking about how smart my dad was. In June of 1989, on a Saturday, I was at our funeral home in Antigo, and I walked across the street to the post office to get the mail. As I returned, an elderly lady was taking some pictures of our funeral home sign. I asked her if I could help her, and she said, "Is this the funeral home where the flag raiser, John Bradley, works?" I said, "Yes, it is, but he's out of town today." Well, she had traveled from Spokane, Washington to see him because her son was killed on Iwo Jima. This trip was her goal before she died. She had some medical problems and her doctor finally told her that she was well enough to travel to Wisconsin. She arrived on a bus in Antigo last night and was leaving Sunday afternoon for her bus trip return home. She hoped that she wouldn't miss Mr. Bradley since she had traveled all that way to see him. She asked where he lived and of what church he was a member. If she couldn't see him, at least she could see where he lived and attend his church. I asked her to come into our office, got her some coffee, and excused myself. I went to another phone and called my dad, who was at the lake about 20 miles north of Antigo, and I told him her story. After a long pause, he said he would pick her up at our motel on Sunday, take her to church, and then take her to brunch and take her to the bus. The lady was very pleased. I have always thought that my dad met this lady thinking of his own mother, that she could have had a son killed on Iwo Jima. And if he could do any act of kindness for her, he would. There's a bronze plaque in the hospital in Antigo remembering the young men from our community who died in World War I. And on the very top of this plaque, before their names, it is written, "God gave us our sons, we gave them to our country, and our country gave them back to God." As we gather this Memorial Day in Floresville, we pause to remember the soldiers and the sailors, the airmen and Marines who died serving our country. We also remember their mothers and fathers, their sisters and brothers, and their girlfriends, all who suffered their great loss of their death. I thank you for this opportunity to address you, to be part of this dedication, and I thank you for your hospitality and your friendship, and I say this also for my wife. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. For those moving words. And I'm sure after hearing Greg's story about your experiences, that you, as well as every wounded combatant in Vietnam, will also say, thank God for medevac helicopters. Now, please have a seat. At this time, we will have the placing of a wreath at the memorial by Mr. Bradley and World War II veteran, member of Post 38, Mr. Travis Longley. We'll now have the sounding of taps by Giver Calvin Betts. Everyone please rise. Please remain standing for the retiring of the colors of Floresville High School, Air Force Junior ROTC Color Guard.
Hold on, falling! That's cover, people, distance. Hey, hey. Hold, hey. Hold on, hold. Be tired, hold. Hey, hey. Hold. Hold, hold. 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 Hold on. Hold. Hey. Hey. Hold. Hold.
Please be seated. At this time, I'm going to call on our post commander, Greg Henricks,
Hold
to
on.
bring some acknowledgments
Hold on.
and remarks on the continuation of the day.
I want to thank the following people. Without their help, this wouldn't have happened today. First of all, the concept for the silhouette itself was thought up by the Post 38 Ladies Auxiliary. Ladies, could you stand? then Travis, you stand, took it one step farther. He took the wood silhouette and made it out of steel. And he cut it out. Ken Coldway, are you here today? Nope. Ken, also a member of the American Legion, poured the concrete, which laid the foundation for this. And the painting was done by Freddie Amaro. He came over here, like I said, yesterday afternoon and spray painted it down. The music was provided by another fellow Legion Post 38 member, Eminem. So the music. A warrant officer in the Army, active duty. I want to thank everybody for attending. I want to thank Steve and Mary for coming all the way down from chilly northern Wisconsin. And I want to thank the riders for coming. I want to thank Amos Trevino for getting that together. And it was quite a showing coming in. Thank you. And I want to thank all of the American Legion members, and I want you to raise your hand that actually worked on this thing. Go ahead, raise your hand. Also, afterwards, there's going to be, you can meet Steve and Mary inside. There's going to be hamburgers and soda over here. You can take it in. It's air conditioning in here, restrooms in here, and there's some memorabilia in here, and there'll be time to talk. Again, thank you very much. One more. There's also Memorial Day poppies for donations inside.